Rolf,
Abdullah, good to see you.
good to see you.
How are you?
Good. I think this place is open. We met at Watches and Wonders for like 10 seconds because we were just running. Yeah, it's great to see you here. Great to see you in Kuala Lumpur. It's been a while since you were here.
Yeah, it's been a moment. I'm glad to be back. Good to see you again and happy to talk watches.
Yeah, I think Malaysia is the watch culture is definitely not up there as maybe as Singapore or Hong Kong, but it's definitely growing, and we are seeing an energy within the Oris community. So it's great to have you here. Now, we are going to be talking about a few things today. We're of course going to be looking at the watches, but I can do that by myself. When I have you here, I also want to talk about the world of Oris. Why should the consumers buy an Oris? You know, like what does it mean to be part of the Oris world? But before we continue, we get into the topic, let's do a wrist check. What are you wearing?
Today I'm wearing my Big Crown original 38 millimeters pointer date with caliber 400s. I love this watch. It brings a lot of things together. It closes a circle for Oris because pointer date, small second. This is what we have been doing for decades, right? Since 1938.
Yeah.
We have been making that complication. And here we do it again with what we are able to do today with caliber 400, 5 days power reserve, 10 years warranty, 10 years service intervals, anti-magnetic. For me, this watch means a lot, and that's why I wear it very often.
That has been a very important watch for Oris, I feel like, because it not just brought in the new caliber, but it also went back to the smooth bezel pointer date, which is something that the first pointer date, I believe, also had a smooth bezel. So this isn't moving away from the traditional coin edge bezel, but I would say the coin edge bezel is something that came out a few decades later. Yeah, there's a lot of history to unpack here. I'm wearing the new Diver 65 chronograph, and this is a watch that I do want to talk to you about today. I'm surprised how much I like it. I'm surprised that it wears oddly not as big as the specs would have indicated, especially in the thickness department, because there are so many step layers that you don't really see the thickness. It just kind of blends in, it kind of cascades onto your wrist. Yeah, as a sports watch for its purpose, of course not a dress watch, this feels good for my small 6.2 inch wrist.
Absolutely, it's a 40 millimeter chronograph. You have that domed sapphire. The aluminum bezel gives a bit of a vintage vibe, but still it's a contemporary sports watch, sports chronograph. I think proportions are very good. The Cervo Volante strap looks good on the watch.
Yeah. Before we get into the watches, let me give you a challenge. Somebody walks into an Oris boutique. They don't know anything about Oris. They may have heard the brand from some of their friends. But in 2025, with all the micro brands that are out there, watch pricing has become quite competitive, especially in that $1,000 to $2,000 price range. How would you describe Oris to somebody that is new to the brand?
Well,
that's a loaded question.
Yes, we have been around making mechanical watches since 1904, and it basically has always been the same. We always have made a very well-made mechanical watch for the person who is interested in watches, but doesn't necessarily want to spend a fortune on his watch. They've always made complications that make sense, that have something to it. We just talked about the pointer date, which I personally love, also from a design perspective, because you don't have to cut the dial for the date, right? We have made things like a depth gauge mechanical, an altimeter mechanical, 10 days power reserve in a hand winding movement, caliber 110 plus, 5 days power reserve, 10 years warranty, 10 years service intervals, and caliber 400s plus. So there's a lot of mechanical competence with Oris. Also, and maybe more importantly, we make a watch that is a sign that you like mechanical watches. Our purpose as a company is to make people smile. A lot of watches out there are made to make people jealous. at the end, that's a very shallow, short-lived feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Exclusive luxury,
Mm.
excluding people, pushing people away.
Yeah.
We are a brand of the watch community. We want to share the joy about mechanical watchmaking. We want to bring people together. This is Oris, and this is what you say when you have an Oris on your wrist.
The funny thing is that this philosophy was also reflected at Watches and Wonders this year. This was my first Watches and Wonders, and with every booth that I went into, there was a sense of urgency and you had to have an appointment, you had to kind of explain who you are, meet the right person, get in, take the photos, get out. And Amin will testify to this. Oris and the press room, these were the only two places where we were hanging out whenever we were not filming, because we just felt so relaxed and the coffee was amazing. That was something that I didn't experience anywhere else. It's not something that you just say, but I feel like this is truly something that is seen, that is experienced when you walk into an Oris boutique, when you speak with all the people, Sharon, Michael, T, like all these guys I've known over the years. It's a wonderful, very down-to-earth brand that I feel is the reason why it resonates with me so much personally.
Yeah, and this actually is on purpose. Going to Geneva, going to the home of exclusive luxury, right? We had a lot of respect at Oris, honestly. And we were thinking about how to portray our brand values. We built a piazza, a town square.
Mm.
That is where people meet on an eye-to-eye level. That is a place of diversity, of exchange, of relaxation, of enjoying time and listening to other people's opinions. That's where you feel more comfortable, as in a place where you have to behave and obey the rules, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting how many people tell us that this
was
is how
always
they
full.
feel at.
It was always, there were always people there.
So you see, we take our brand ethos, we take it very seriously, and we mean it. We are a brand that welcomes people and that wants to share the joy about mechanical watchmaking.
Speaking of watches, let's look at these watches. We did look at some of these during Watches and Wonders, but I wanted to kind of explore a bit beyond just what we saw. We looked at the specs, we looked at the designs. The one question that I don't think I asked, or a lot of people asked, is why? The why behind this revamp, the why behind this modernization. The way that I look at this is this new iteration of the Diver 65, of the pointer dates, and even the Aquas has received a few modernization, a few progressive updates. What I want to know is, what is the mindset behind these changes?
This to me is absolutely the right question. Why? When we talk about mechanical watches, we talk about the product that nobody really needs, right? You want it. And you spend a lot of money on something, well, it's hard to say has no practical use, it's not true, but you can read the time somewhere else. Yeah. So it's a piece of jewelry, it's an accessory, it's something that cheers you up. So we must be very mindful about why we do this, why we expect the customer to spend his money on that. And in our industry, often forget that customers spend a lot of money on our product. They save up for months, for years sometimes, to have one of our timepieces. And therefore, we better make sure that we get it 100% right to fulfill their expectations. And talking about the Big Crown now, Big Crown Original, people know the Big Crown with the knurled bezel, which is called Big Crown, has a more vintage look than the Big Crown Original with the flat bezel. However, as you said before, the flat bezel is the original one. That's why it's called Big Crown Original, from the 1930s. Yeah. And we took this more industrial, a bit less vintage look and brought it into our days, into a contemporary watch, while keeping the design of the numerals, the slightly emboldened numbers, the pointer date complication, which I love very much, as we talked about before. And then we gave the whole collection some vibrant colors with the 754 Solita-based movements, and some more elegant, subdued colors with the caliber 403 base movement to make it a collection that's fit for our times.
The way I see this new collection and where it fits, it's not replacing the previous generation of the pointer dates with the coin edge bezel and the cathedral hands. I think that has a very classic look, almost a vintage vintage look.
Also,
It's-
it won't go away.
Yeah.
These two collections will coexist.
So I think that's the key here, because I think a lot of people, including me, we were at first a bit worried that we're gonna lose out on that. And oh no, why are those going away, because they're so iconic for the brand. But I think what this does is that it kind of expands on the pointer date and modernizes it, like you said, because I can see why that generation of the pointer dates may not work for everybody. You know, there are a lot of elements that speak to very classic design that may not resonate with modern audiences, people that want to wear, you know, Apple watches, people that just want to wear t-shirts and jeans. So these are the new versions. I mean, just look at this color. This color, I would say, is the highlight of this watch. And who do I see this with? I come from design background, so I would say that a lot of architects, a lot of designers, a lot of students that are maybe graduating, and they would love something like this. Yes, it misses some of those key characteristics that people associate the pointer dates with, but it adds another layer of fun and excitement to the pointer date, another layer of identity that again calls back to the original pointer date, as you said. Yeah,
it's interesting that you mentioned the Bauhaus, right? Yes, there are a lot of watches that are inspired by that movement and by that time. Personally, I think from a design perspective, the term has been a bit abused over the
Definitely.
decades, right? Resulting in all these shoe boxes that we see around the world being sold as architecture, but proportions aren't quite right, details aren't quite
Yes.
right. It just takes these principles and then
It's become a cost-cutting measure. It's like minimalist as something to remove rather than carefully considered elements.
exactly. And here with the Big Crown Original, you have design elements from the 1930s, the time of the Bauhaus, but it has this warmth that the original objects of the Bauhaus had, right?
Yeah.
It was never cold. It was always human-centric. It was always warm. It was always appealing. It was always with positive energy. And the same emotion I get from the Big Crown Originals. With these colors, they are really contemporary watches, but you have that whole story playing in your head when you look at this watch. At least I feel this way. And actually, it's interesting that the yellow color is the one that works best, even though at the beginning we were a little hesitant to do such yellow watch.
Yeah.
And now it's
It's
out of the collection.
in the metal. It's a very different look. I wasn't expecting it to be, you know, legibility was the number one concern when we saw the pictures, because the yellow just looked so bright. Legibility isn't an issue here. It's just a pop of color, but at the same time, from any angle, you can still very easily read the time, because this could have been a disaster. could have been a lemon on a wrist, but it's really not. Let's talk a bit about this new Diver 65 chronograph, the watch that I'm wearing right now. Honestly, when I saw this watch, I was not excited. I'll be honest with you.
Why?
I was excited about everything else, but the Diver 65 to me, it seemed a little bland compared to the black version. I love the black version. The green, I felt like it wasn't for me until I saw it in person.
And
I
now
think
it's the opposite.
yeah.
Right?
and I hate when this happens, because it feels like I'm being fake for the camera, but I'm not. I can see myself wearing this watch because the green is just so subtle. It looks almost black. It has this foresty look, but also the dimensions, the proportions, the look is so perfect. When I look at the Diver 65 in general, to me, it's one of the most recognizable vintage reissues of vintage watches that we have seen in the modern age. I would say that with so many micro brands jumping on this bandwagon of vintage inspired dive watches, I would say that the Diver 65 and the Diver's Date has been on the forefront of that trend, like really epitomizing, really nailing those details to the point where it's just aesthetically so well made and so it just looks right.
Yeah, and it also has the history dating back to 1965. The version with the inverse numerals is one of my favorites, which is made a 60th anniversary edition of that Diver 65. Here with the chrono, yes, I see your point that you preferred the black before you saw it in person. That warm green that can look very dark, almost black if you don't see it from close. I think it's fantastic color. We worked a long time on this color to get it perfectly right, and I am happy that now with this panda look and the sunburst silver dial, it's a combination that really works well. Proportions are good in that 40mm case. I like the metal bracelet very much personally. Leather strap is also nice. Cervo Volante.
The last thing that you as a brand want to do is make something that reminds you of something else. You want to retain that originality. That when if this was my watch and I was to look at it, I would want this to be an original piece. I would want this not to remind me of some existing watch. So I think this color combination answers that. It gives you something that really doesn't exist, a look that doesn't exist.
Also because there are, on a photo, you just have one angle.
Yeah.
Right? And you can make it look very good, but you never get the whole watch. And
Yes.
you need to see it, and you need to see it in light, you need to see it in shadow, and then you understand the whole piece. And that's what makes this a piece of jewelry, right?
Yeah.
That's what gives depth to it. If the photo is better than the watch, then I prefer it the other way around.
I do want to talk a little bit about the status of Oris in today's watch market. Below $1,000 price point is easy. Above $5,000 price point is easy because that's luxury. The $2,000 to $4,000 price, I feel like, just from observation, I feel like that's where it's the most challenging for brands because it's affordable, it's attainable, but it's still not entry level. It's still something aspirational. When we say that Oris is an independent brand, it's not a micro brand, it's not a group brand, it's an independent brand, it's Swiss independent brand that takes care of its value for money. It's still an everyman's watch brand. What does it mean to be independent? How would you describe that?
Well, independence for us is everything. This is what makes us. This is, it's not just being independent from a group. It's not just being independent from banks. It's having an independent mindset and being able to do what we want to do in the long term with this brand. It also means taking responsibility for the brand that has been around since 1904. That's a big responsibility to bring a brand like that into the future. Then also it means responsibility for the people who work for the brands. From that feeling of responsibility comes also our initiatives for the environment. So independence really is a key aspect of our brand. And you're right, at the moment it's not easy times. We have a lot of things coming together affecting the watch industry. Just yesterday on this national holiday and on Kermit's Day, we heard about the 39% tariffs now that the US imposed on Swiss goods, which frankly don't make much sense, especially not for our industry, as our value creation comes from retailing, advertising in the United States, and not necessarily from manufacturing. Another very important point is the strong Swiss franc. Against many currencies, I've just been in Japan, now here in Malaysia, but also in the United States. the Swiss franc has gained massively against local currencies, and then you're faced with 40%, 50% higher prices just from the currency exchange without even having inflation taken into account or improvement on quality or any price rise at all. And I understand that the local customer, he doesn't see that because he just sees that higher price, even though it may really just come from the currency. And in our case, we try to eat up as much as possible of this difference ourselves, but we can't do it all. At the end, we need to run a sustainable business. You know, with the cost of the watch, there is so much more than just
the movement.
the movement or the actual product, right?
Yep.
When you buy an Oris watch, when you buy a vintage Oris watch, you will be able to have it serviced at your service center here in Malaysia or in any other country, or back in Switzerland. You will have your case replaced if you need it, even for a watch that's several decades old. You will have the possibility to get a dial or hands, a sapphire crystal or a plexi crystal for your watch. We do have these archives, we have this stock. So there's a whole organization coming with a brand that's 120 years old. You can be sure that we will still be around in 20 years to come. We take these things very seriously when it comes to after sales. Also, it's quite costly to run an independent brand.
Especially in Switzerland.
Plus, in Switzerland, we do everything ourselves.
Yeah.
If you're in a group, you have all these shared services. We don't. We work harder, we do more, we go the extra mile. Why do we do it? Because we want to be independent, because this way we don't have to bend. This way we can do what we believe is the right thing to do in the long term for Oris, a brand we believe in, a brand that I personally share the values that it has been standing for over 120 years. And this is, at the end, what makes us, and this is what the customer pays his money for.
Well, thank you so much, Rolf.
Abdullah, thank you.
It was great seeing you,
Yes.
great talking to you.
Was fun. It's
And,
hot here in the Malaysian sun,
Yeah, it's always hot here. That's why I'm not wearing my jacket.
but it's nice to be here, and thank you for taking the time.